Chapter 15. Sweat rolled down Adam's forehead. It stung and blinded him when it hit his eyes. With his shirt sleeve, he wiped it away and kept running. Each step brought a searing, agonizing pain. Once Adam looked down and saw that his feet were torn and bleeding, yet he kept on climbing, dodging from one tree to the next. How long he had been running, Adam didn't know, but each time he stopped to look back, he felt it would be his last. The men were closing in on him, fast. Already he could hear Ruff baying. He could hear his clumsy feet crashing through the brush not far behind. Adam fell, headlong, tumbling into a soft, mossy bank at the base of a needle-leaved pine. His breathing was so hard it drowned out all other sound. He clawed at the ground, struggling to get to his feet. It seemed like he took forever to get up. Still dizzy, he leaned on the pine and moved around to the opposite side. The cool mountain air hurt his throat. He made a whistling sound when he tried to breathe. Ruff's yapping grew closer. Beyond the sound of the red pup's voice, he could hear the two men. They were shouting to each other, fussing about how they had missed their first shot at him. They were betting money on who would fire the shot that dropped him. "Why don't you give up?" Adam growled at himself. "You can't go on much farther. Why don't you hold up your hands and step out where they can see you? Maybe they won't shoot." But even as his voice inside was saying give up, his eyes were already scanning the area in front of him, trying to find a way of escape. There was a small bluff about 20 yards from this tree. It wasn't over 10 feet tall, but it was a straight rock cliff, smooth as glass. About 10 feet to the right, there was a cut in a cliff. It was sheltered by a scrub cedar, and Adam didn't see it at first. When he did, he frowned, wondering if the rocks were rough enough for him to climb. If he could only make it to the top of that bluff, he would be out of sight of the men. It was too steep for the pup to follow. If he could just make the top. He didn't feel the sharp rocks digging into the raw flesh on the soles of his feet when he started to run. He didn't hear the two men shout when they spotted him. He didn't hear the boom from their guns. He did feel the pain, the ripping, searing, white-hot pain as a rifle ball tore through his leg. It sent him spinning to the side. He couldn't keep from yelling out with hurt. He found himself on the ground, eyes open. He could barely see. The throbbing seemed to make the whole world hazy. The cover of pine needles above him spun in giant circles. He blinked his eyes and reached down to rub at the place that hurt so. When he did, he felt a warm wetness. He looked at his hand and saw the bright red. "I think I hit him," one of the men's voices came from behind. "Come on." Adam gritted his teeth. With every ounce of strength he had, he strained to roll to his side, to get up on his hands and knees, but his right knee wouldn't hold him. He glanced down and saw the hole in his leg. He saw the place where his pants were stained with blood. "Hurry!" The men's voices sounded closer. "He went this way." Dragging himself on his hands and one knee, Adam crawled to the cedar tree and started up the cut in the sheer rock cliff. There was a sound behind him, a rattling, rustling sound like some animal crawling through the brush. Adam turned to look, but there was nothing there. A low branch of the cedar tree waved back and forth, but that was all. Then Ruff was barking again, very, very near. Adam bit down on his lip. The pain from the bullet was almost too much for him to stand. Still, he kept climbing. Hand over hand, he clawed his way up the jagged rocks. The sound of his heart pounded in his ears. Finally, he was just a little ways from the top. He had to climb only a few more feet. "You've got to do it," a voice screamed from inside. "You've got to make it to the top." He glanced down. Ruff was standing beneath him. His big brown eyes rolled up at Adam. The fluffy, ragged red tail wagged in great circles. Then, almost smiling, he let out a piercing howl that seemed to echo against all the mountains for miles. He was telling the whole world he'd found his master. Adam glared down at him. "Get out of here," he said with an angry whisper. "You're going to lead them right to me." Ruff perked his ears. He tilted his head to the side, puzzled over Adam's sudden anger. "Get!" Adam hissed again. Ruff tilted his head the other way. A small rock rattled just an inch or so from Adam, hanging onto the cliff with one hand. He reached out with the other and got the rock. "Get!" he scolded again. Then he pitched the rock at the red pup. Only trouble, Ruff had never had that many rocks chunked at him, so instead of tucking in his tail and running off, he started sniffing the ground, trying to figure out what Adam had thrown him to eat. Adam felt his eyes roll back in his head. "Dumb knothead," he said to himself. "I wish I'd never found you. I wish Sam had left you to the varmints in that cave." "He's up here someplace." One of the men's voices came to him. They weren't far away. "No, it's this way," the other called. "I know I hit him. I seen him go down." It was all over now. Adam knew it. Any second they would spot Ruff wagging his tail and looking up at the crevice in the cliff where he was hiding. They'd see Ruff, then they'd come to the base of the tree and see him. Adam sighed. It wouldn't surprise him if they laughed as they raised their rifles to finish him off. "There he is," a man's gruff voice shouted. "The boy must be under that tree with the dog sniffing around." "Come on," the other called. "We got him now." Adam felt himself quiver. The thought of the white-hot lead from their rifles ripping into his flesh sent a knot racing to his throat. He felt the warm dampness of a tear gliding down his cheek. He wished he could see Mother and Lori again, just one more time. He wished he were warm and comfortable in his own bed. And most of all, he wished that dying wouldn't hurt and that it would be quick and painless. Adam took a deep breath. He closed his eyes, waited for the end.